Hi there, this is Carol from Skill Check, and today we're going to be talking about some fun stuff, and it's ADA kind of made easy. How do we comply with the ADA requirements in self-storage and really do a good job of helping people who are handicapped at our properties, but also, keeping the people away that are kind of bad actors that try to go after us, huh? Hey, how you doing today, Paul?
Good. How you doing, Carol? Glad to
I'm
be
good.
here.
Good. So, tell us everything you know about ADA, okay?
Everything we know. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
American Dental Association. No, no, just kidding.
Yes.
No, it really is. I've been involved in building departments, architecture, design, worked as a contractor for a while, so understand the whole world of the built environment. And one of the biggest issues is business owners trying to comply with the law. It's not that they're trying to intentionally circumvent the law, they just
Hmm.
don't understand it. And you get different answers from architects, from building departments, from owners, and there's a lot of confusion out there. So my
That's true.
passion for the last 20 something years is to make ADA made easy. And I have 4 simple tips for specific for storage owners that will really help them out with not only making their facilities more accessible, and I'll explain some good reasons for that, but more importantly, avoid those drive-by lawsuits and those
Mm.
opportunists that are out there.
That's true.
So yeah, I just wanted to throw in my contact information. So if any of your viewers or listeners are out there and they have a question, nothing upsets me more than seeing something built the wrong way. So if there's a simple question, an email, a
Mhm.
text, shoot it over. How high is
Perfect.
the soap dispenser have to be? I can
Yeah.
get you an answer really quick. Obviously, if you have a full set of plans for a brand new facility that you're building, we might want to talk about a consulting arrangement. But I'm happy to help whenever we can. And so there's my information, and that's the most I'm going to point out for that. So
Okay.
big thing here is I want to make you a rock star. I already talked about this is not the Americans with Disabilities Act. So I mean American Dental Association. So the biggest thing is I want to help you become a rock star, you and your listeners, when it comes to the ADA and the storage facilities. Dispel some of the confusion and misunderstandings. And when buildings are and facilities are accessible, it's good not for business, but more importantly, good for people with disabilities.
Yes.
And then one disclaimer here is I'm not some stiff in a suit. I've got a guitar in the background, so I'm a pretty down to earth guy, and I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of jargon. And I know, Carol, you have some experiences in this realm, and
Hmm.
so you're going to be helping out with the many people you work with, and so we'll be covering a lot here. I have lots of pictures, practical application that will really help make sense. But I'm also not an attorney, and I don't believe you. Are you an attorney, Carol?
No.
Yeah. So we're
I
we're
think
not
I am
providing.
sometimes.
Yeah.
The questions I get a lot of questions about legal issues with self-storage, but I think like you do with ADA, I mean, doesn't mean you're an attorney, right? But you can still answer a lot of questions because you're an expert in it. But yeah.
Yeah, and the true testament to becoming an expert, and I'm sure you've had this, is when the attorneys call you for
Oh,
advice
yes.
because they don't know the law as well or the
Yeah.
situation as well as you do. And I'm sure you've had that. And so yeah, we're not giving legal advice or anything like that. And if anything that involves litigation, you always seek the services of a qualified attorney or lawyer. And but before we get to the 4 tips, that's what the crux of this presentation is. I want to go over some common myths and misconceptions with the ADA. And I'll probably put you on the spot, Carol,
Okay.
because your listeners will be thinking this, and we'll see if we can get these right. And
Okay.
but I'm sure you've heard some of this before, so let's go for it. So first off, have you ever heard of this? I'm not affected by the ADA because I'm not changing or remodeling my business. Therefore, I'm grandfathered in. Have you heard that before?
Yes.
So
My
would you?
owners, the storage owners have told me that even though, and I'm managing the property. I'm like, no. Yeah.
And so yeah, so definitely false. There is no grandfathering clause. There's
Hmm.
no, okay, the ADA came in, in the early 90s roughly. So if your
Hmm.
facility was built in the 70s or something like that, you're not exempt. You're not grandfathered in. There's this bar called readily achievable barrier removal that's always there, whether you're doing construction or not. And you always have to be looking at those requirements. It's an ongoing obligation. Number 2, my building complies with the ADA because my architect, contractor, and the building department signed everything off when it was built. Ooh, have you heard that before?
Yeah. Yes, that's not true.
Definitely not true. Nothing more. I'm a previous code official, so I know the flaws in our system.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, you pay all that money for the best architect, pay all that money for engineers, pay all those exorbitant fees, wait 2 years for your building permit, you get it built. As soon as it's built, something's missed, and it's
yeah.
like, why? And it just frustrates me as much as it does people in this space. If they buy a brand new facility and yet it doesn't comply. And a lot of times local building departments, architects are so focused on just the permit process, which is local, state, and
Right.
building department requirements. They forget about the ADA, and that's where we slip up sometimes. So this is definitely false.
Yeah, sometimes, Paul, that really stops the opening of a new property, even though you think, okay, it's all new, everyone should know this, right? But
Yeah.
then it's like when the contractor put it in, they didn't put something high or low enough, and yeah, so it's really complicated. Yeah,
Yeah, and there's that the difficulty for the contractors and the architects is there's a separation. There's a lot of times there's state and local requirements that don't always jive with the federal,
right.
and so not that they're intentionally trying to build something
Right, no.
wrong. It's just that it just gets missed, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Here's a great one. I'm sure you've heard this one before. We don't have any disabled customers. We are a small facility, and no one with a disability or a wheelchair has ever come in here. The ADA
Yeah.
doesn't apply to us. True or
Right.
false?
That's false.
Definitely false. You can see a pattern
Another
here.
one wrong again.
Yeah, there's no, again, the ADA is an ongoing obligation. Even if you're not doing construction and your facility was built before Moby Dick was a minnow, it still has to go through an evaluation occasionally, just like all other types of compliance issues. And it's intended to do what you can, and we'll talk more about that as we go through this presentation. I think this is the last one. No trick questions here. I don't have to worry about the ADA. That's the landlord's obligation. Or I don't have to worry about the ADA. That's the tenant's obligation.
No.
Have you heard that before?
Yes, I've heard it.
It's the same thing.
Yes.
They'll sue everybody. Tenant, owner, whoever has the biggest checkbooks is who they're going to go after. And there are situations where lease agreements can
Mm,
facilitate who's going to be more on the hook for things, but for the most part everybody's on the hook for it, and there's no way to lease out of it.
right.
So there are a
Yeah.
couple of misconceptions and common things, but more importantly, what is all this ADA stuff anyway, and how does it really affect storage facility owners? Well, the number one thing, as you know, Carol, is lawsuits.
Hmm.
That's the big driver, and
It
and
is.
unfortunately, yeah, and unfortunately, that is the reality. And if you look at this graph here, this is a great indicator of kind of the pattern. I mean, it started in 2013. This is put out by Seyfarth Shaw LLP, which is a law firm that specializes in ADA litigation, and they do these reports every year. And you can see in 2013 it was about 2,700 lawsuits, and in 2020 it was up around 11,000, a little dip because of COVID. But you can see the year-over-year increase on average for the last 7 years or so is
Hmm.
about 28%, almost 30% every year. There's more, and these are just the lawsuits that are actually have gone to court. This doesn't
Right.
include the hundreds
Oh,
of thousands of settlements.
yes.
And
Yeah, Paul,
unfortunately,
that, go ahead.
I was just going to say, unfortunately, that's the real game that a lot of the opportunists or what we call serial litigants do. Is they're really looking for a settlement in a lot of cases, as
Right.
opposed to
You know
making
what's
it.
interesting about that? Because I had a lot of storage properties in Northern California, and one of my clients was a former senator, and he had 3 locations, and he was super nice older guy. Well, and
Mhm.
his son was also in the government. So he said, well, I told him we've got a letter from this guy, and he wants $5,000. I mean, it was so blatantly bold, like holding you hostage, right? And this old guy, he's like, no, no, this guy's not even a tenant. I said, no, sir, he's not a tenant. We can't find him anywhere. He's not a tenant, and we don't think he's like, he has his stuff in with his girlfriend stuff that's a tenant. He was not a tenant. He just came onto the property and he saw that we didn't have for ADA compliance, and so he went after us. And then I thought, okay, I finally got them to say yes for the 5,000, which was really hard. And then the guy figured out that this owner had a couple more stores, and he went after those stores too.
Mm,
And then, I tried to bring it to the people in self-storage and say, we got to do something about this. We need to get this fixed. So we even went to Chateau and asked them for, give us some signs, some ADA, we need product right for
right.
this. But it was just the number of lawsuits that guy had, it just in that short period of time when I was working with him, it was like 130
Mm,
lawsuits that he had filed. So he must
yeah.
just go like getting his little vehicle and go around looking for the next place, right? Is that
Yeah, absolutely. There are several individuals that do that, unfortunately, and in California specifically, the um, the person with the disability actually is entitled to compensatory damages.
yes.
So there's a financial um, incentive there in a lot of cases. And so a couple individuals, I think there's roughly about 30 individuals in California alone that file about 85 to 90% of all lawsuits.
That's
So
unbelievable, isn't it?
yeah, and and they'll argue, well, we're just out for access. Well, did you really go to 10 dry cleaners in the city of Woodland in one day?
Right.
And it's like
Yes, exactly.
probably not. And then four movie theaters and four hotels all in one
Mhm.
day. It's kind of and some of those have been labeled as fictitious or serial litigants in California in the district
Yes.
courts and so forth. But the big thing they rely on is most people don't even look at the low-hanging fruit when it comes to the ADA. Therefore, they're an easy target. And even if you want to fight it, let's say you've got unlimited funds, you're Steve
Oh,
Jobs,
yeah.
and you're ready to throw $1 billion after this lawsuit, you're going to go to court, and the judge is going to go, I want to cite with you, but did you, in the last 30 years, did you even put the $6 sticker in the window?
Right.
Probably not. And
Right.
that's why
That's
the settlement is
right.
the easiest thing. And it's unfortunate, but it is a reality. And as with any metric, you can see the trend. And as you know, in your case, the guy actually, or gal, whoever it was, actually went to the site. Well, in a lot of cases, there's what's called Google lawsuits. They will
Oh,
use Street
yes.
View and not even go to the site. They
Right.
can see on the Street View, oh, you've got a built-up curb ramp. You're missing signage. Boom, send a letter. Most businesses will settle. 5,000 is cheap. Usually, the average settlement is 12 to 15,000.
Yeah.
And so in a lot of cases, and Anderson Cooper here on the 60 Minutes, you can go watch it online still, and they talk about the drive-by, and it's not just in California, it's in Florida, New York,
Right.
Arizona. So it's in a lot of areas and it's continuing to grow and so forth, which is unfortunate. But as negative as that is, I want to give you some positive stuff here. First off, the ADA isn't all erroneous. It isn't all about,
Right.
just everybody in a wheelchair is out to sue your business because you don't have a parking stall. The vast majority of individuals just want to go about their business, be treated like everybody else.
Right.
I have a term we call equal, and that is, they just want to be just like everybody else. They want to come rent their storage unit, get a cup of
Mhm.
coffee, rent a hotel room, go about their business. But there are a very minority that give the ADA a really bad name.
Right.
And about 26% of the population, or 61 million of us, are disabled, and we're all going to be disabled at some point. And so there are a lot of advantages of having that. And the most important thing is financially, okay? Good ADA or good facility ADA. If your facility is up to par and easy to get to for people with disabilities,
Yeah.
you've just opened yourself up to a $490 billion market. Okay, the people with disabilities, and not just wheelchairs, visually
Right.
impaired, hearing impaired, covers a lot of disabilities. So when you are accepting to people with disabilities,
Mhm.
you immediately expose your facility to a huge market. And I think it's twice or three times the teenage market.
Isn't
490
that
billion
something?
dollars.
Wow.
Yeah. So if they see you and your competitor, and you have a nice parking stall and an easy way to get into the counter to ask how much
Mhm.
rental unit is, and then your competitor has no ramp, no steps, or has steps going up, or one of those modulars with stairs and no
Yes.
lift or anything,
Yes.
they're going to go to the easy one and take that money over there. So there is a lot of reason to make your facility accessible from a financial standpoint, but also um, to avoid the lawsuits. And nothing's more frustrating than spending money on an attorney that could have went to putting a new parking stall in or something like that.
Yeah.
So we want these people in our brand experience, and then this is the big thing here I want to get to, and then we're going to get to the 4 tips, and that is, what areas are these high frequency litigants targeting? When I'm talking about high frequency litigants, that's what I mean by serial litigant, the ones that are going to 5 dry cleaners in a city just trying to get settlements.
Right.
And there was a study done in 2018 or 2000, I think it was 2018. And you can see on this graph right here of the areas of a facility, of storage facilities that they target. And number 1, you can see almost 44% is parking. Number 2 is at 24%, that's approach and entry. So that's getting from the parking stall into your office. And then 15% is your bathrooms in that public facing office. And then 11% is your access inside or your storage units. So that's really low on the totem pole, because your public facing office is the prime spot where they're coming to see if they're going to do business with you, and is the target. And so my simple tip for you, what do you think it's going to be? It's going to be, get your parking lot right. If you don't take anything else from this presentation, if you can just get your parking lot right, it will reduce your facility owners exposure to lawsuits by almost 50%. I mean, 45, I mean, you can round up and down a little bit, but it's almost 50% just getting that right. Plus, it wards you off from the New York attorneys that are on Google Earth that aren't even visiting your site. They see, oh, he or she's got a, shiny parking stall signage up. That's too hard to fight. We're going to go find someone else that does, because there's too many other ones out there. There's too much other low-hanging fruit out there. So number 1 simple tip that I have for you today is, get your parking lot right. It is literally like ADA lawsuit repellent. We can't emphasize that enough.
And that's the facade too. That's what they see first, right? And without actually having to rent or anything like that, they can't necessarily get in every facility to see if they're marked properly. But the outside, you're right. And I always got dinged every time, we had a problem with this early on. Not now, but it was always that parking lot and the bathroom. The doggone, I mean, I've had to move the mirror down 3 inches. And then the sink was in the way, which is probably why they didn't do it right the first time. And then everything it was just so expensive. I couldn't believe fixing all those little, and what I thought at first were little things, but then they got to be big things.
Yeah, and that's depending on the age of the facility, how old it was. The ADA first came in the early 90s, and then in 2010 there was a rewrite that became effective in 2013. So it was almost 20 years. But in California, there's a new code every 3 years.
Yeah.
So so it and sometimes those don't always jive, but it just depends on the facility and so forth. But here's kind of what we're talking about, Carol. Here's someone Google Earths this facility or comes to do business with this facility, and on face value, oh yeah, I got the little ISA. ISA is International Symbol of Disability, or the little guy in the wheelchair or gal, and it's got a sign, it's got striping, it looks good, blue curb or a wheel stop there, looks good on face value. But I can see probably 5 different violations, and more so in California, right, just by looking at it. Number 1, that applies everywhere. Whether you're in California or not, the biggest problem is the over on the left over here. I don't know, can you see my mouse?
Yes.
Yeah. So right here is this is over sloped. So this parking access aisle here where people offload have to go up like an oversloped ramp. Everything in this access aisle has to be flat, no more than 2%. And then in California, it's missing the no parking signage, a blue border around the access aisle. It's on the wrong side for California. So so for California, it's got lots of issues. Outside of California, not as many, but still a few, and enough to get you in a pickle. And so if you reverse that, there is a cost here because it's an older facility, but again, you're going to reduce, you spend that 5 to 10 grand, 15 grand to fix it. Plus you get a tax write-off, which I'll show you about here in a little bit. And you've just reduced your exposure by almost 50%. This is another one, same thing here. This is a client we worked with. You can see looks good, signage, blue ISA, but there's a big yellow curb ramp right in
Yes.
the access aisle, and that's where they offload into this crosshatch area and go up to, to go back into the building. And so what we did is we advised them to do a new concrete pad. Now they got nice blue updated striping, nice new signage, and then you can see there's a zero curb here right at the head of this access
Right.
aisle with nice compliant ramps, easy to get into. Yes, there's an expense there, but they did this out of concrete, and the concrete curb ramps, it's going to last 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
Even if they come out and hog out and re-asphalt the parking lot, this concrete's staying true.
Right.
And so forth. So just a couple of tips there on parking lots, because that will again reduce your exposure by 50%. Now, simple tip number 2 is make sure there's a route of travel. That's saying, just like we talked about, this is the areas they target. So this will reduce your exposure by 24%. And what I mean by that is, like, say you have a facility on the right over there. I have it blocked out to protect the innocent, but let's say you're on a lot like this storage facility, in a fairly urban area with sidewalks. And so a lot of people with disabilities rely on public transit. So they may not be bringing their storage items or anything. They may just be coming to see what your rates are, what the facility looks like, and so they get off the bus stop, and now they're trying to find a way into your building. Well, there's not one here, same client. And so what we ended up doing is right here, I'll show you the picture, boom, we cut in an easy, a little flat work, a little expense to do a compliant walkway there, but you keep that under 5%. You don't have to put handrails and all that stuff in like a big
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so now you can get from the public way right to the restaurant. Restaurant.
Well, otherwise they'd have to go out on the road to
Yeah,
be.
in the vehicle way.
Yes.
And think about it.
I
Would
mean,
we let
some of
our
these
kids
do make
run?
sense, right?
Yeah. What's that?
Some of these fixes do make sense. I mean, it's not just art being arbitrary. If you have a disability, this is important, right? So I think sometimes people are like, oh, it's all these regulations we don't really need. But until you get to the point where you're handicapped, you're like, wait,
Yeah.
this is not so easy.
Right. And think about if you're short stature, whether you're a child or in a wheelchair, you're not going to want to be running through the parking lot behind cars that are backing
Right.
out, big old trucks, that
Yeah.
don't see you. And so now you can safely come off the road here, right into your facility without getting in the vehicle. This was a drive-through aisle
Right.
right here for a
Yeah.
restaurant actually, but still that's a short little distance and straight
Mhm.
across. Whereas normally you'd have to come down this road, come all in the vehicle way. It's just dangerous.
Yes.
So very good fix. Again,
Yeah, that is.
24, almost 25% reduction. So if you do the parking lot and this tip, you're at 75% reducing your exposure to a lawsuit. Sometimes you need ramps. Those are more costly. I recommend if you have room to try to use walkways, because then it just leaves less issues that can be used in a lawsuit. If you have a long meandering ramp, don't cram a 30-foot ramp in an area. Run that sidewalk around, and at a real gradual slope.
Yeah, and these are
And
more expensive.
very much expensive. Flat work's easy. You can
Yeah,
add
I've had to
another
do about 4 or 5 of those.
Yeah, yeah, and another 50 feet of flat work is a lot cheaper than doing a big old
Oh,
retaining
yes.
wall and stuff, as you know. Now, one thing I want to point out for you, rural, RURAL, I can't say it,
Rural.
rural, there we go, folks, is if you don't have a sidewalk out on the public way right here,
Mhm.
then no connection is required. Okay, because obviously there's nobody coming via the sidewalk. So then you would just be looking at the parking stall into the facility. So if you're out in an area that doesn't have public sidewalks and things like that, then you don't have to worry about that. Just
Mhm.
concentrate on the parking stall into the building,
Right.
because most people will come in by driving. All right, so simple tip number 3, so we got 2 so far, is ensure that you have accessible self-storage units. Okay, and whether this is by policy for facilities built before March 15th, 2012. So what happened, and you may remember this, Carol, is when the ADA came in, there were no requirements in the ADA for anything in storage units. Then when they did the rewrite in 2010 that became effective in 2012, it then had requirements for storage units, which it
Right.
never had before. And so one of the things you can do in these older facilities is to accommodate people with disabilities and be in compliance with the law is have a policy that allows you to for someone to make a request for a more accessible unit. So maybe you have a 14 by 20 that they wanted. That's not let me go 8 by 10 that they wanted, but it's on a real steep spot. They can't park or use it. But there's another one over here that's 14 by 20 that would work for them. Give them that bigger one at that same rate as the 8 by 10
Yes.
because it's in a more accessible location. And you train your staff to do that and be accommodating. And you have a written policy like that. And if you get in a lawsuit, you can say, yes, Mr. Judge or Mr. Attorney, Mrs. Attorney, we are aware of our facility. It's very old. So to comply with the ADA, we've done these provisions. We have a policy in place, and it makes you in a much more defensible position.
Yes.
So this will reduce your exposure by 11%. So this is, pretty typical storage type facility. This one's relatively flat, so it's pretty easy. And you don't have to have parking stalls at every single one. You don't have parking stalls for everybody else. They park right there. They offload their car into the thing, so you don't have to put parking stalls or anything like that. But you should identify your most accessible units, and you don't need that many to comply.
Depending on how many doors you have.
Yeah, if it's 5%, but no fewer than one for facilities from 1 to 200.
Right.
So that one unit for every 20. So I don't know what that would be. I can't do the math on the top of my head.
No, I can't.
But let's see. And then over 201, it's 10 plus 2%. So, and I have an easy table that does that. So let's say your facility has 147. Here, I got the math in my notes here. Let's say your facility has 147 self-storage units on the site total, all types, 4 by 4 all the way up to 20 by 20 or whatever they are. And then with 5 different classes available at the facility, based on that number, 8 storage units would have to be made accessible. And so in a lot of cases, you may have more unit types than what's required. In other words, you may have, in my sample, I said there were 5 different classes or types. I mean, most of the time it's more than that. You might have 10 or 15 different size types on a large facility, but you may only need 8 to be accessible. So you just pick 8 that are either in a location. You don't have to add more to the others. And then you have that policy in place that says, hey, if you wanted that 4 by 4, we'll give you the 8 by 8 for the same rate because it's one of the accessible ones.
Yeah.
And it's real, just it's common sense and accommodating and just having a documentation and so forth. Now, some of the requirements that are for these units is thresholds. So you can see in this unit here, this is from, I know you probably know them, Janus International.
Yes.
I think they have a booth at FSA. Yeah. So that's a good group. They sell an ADA kit, and I'm not, I don't get a cut or anything. It's just one of many that I found. They had a good picture on their website, so I've included it in my presentations. But it comes with the pull down rope that gets it within reach range, the ISA with the accessible signage there, and then it has that metal threshold. Yeah.
Because we usually have a lip there to keep the water from, if it rains a lot. But then this fixes that problem.
Yeah, without having to go in and demo concrete and all that stuff. It's a metal plate that will withstand, drain. It's still shed away and so forth with a good seal. But I don't think these are very expensive, but but that's really what you're looking at. So you don't have to necessarily go in. Now where you're problematic is if you have a facility like this. This was one of my clients I worked with, and you can see it's substantially sloped. They don't have a path of travel into the facility. So that unit there's no way to make it accessible. So what they did is they didn't have a lot of parking even at the office.
Right.
So what they did is they just added one near this bank of units here on the left, so they could either use.
I'm surprised that worked.
Yeah, yeah, they lucked out. So they can either use the ones on the left there, or the gate opens and they can go use those other ones on or they're by the truck, and so forth. So basically, the whole policy thing is, when requested by a customer, allowing them to rent one or more of the expensive units for the same rate as the unit they were looking for, or if it's reversed, that's okay too, if that's what they want. But having a written policy, even if you can't make all of the units accessible now because you're your facility's old, at least have that policy in place. And that's something that's easy to implement and a good CYA.
Yeah. Hey, it's something reminds me of. So see how the rope on that unit is kind of hanging down a little bit. I had one of my stores, and I was driving around the corner. I was going up to see my manager, and uh, I look, and it looks like this little kid's like jumping up, and I'm thinking, what is going on? And over and over and over. And I was like, what is I couldn't tell. I kept thinking, who would leave a kid out here, right, with by themselves and jumping up for the rope? And I get up there, and it's like a little person.
Oh
So
yeah,
I was like, oh, I got out, and I said, can I help? And
yeah,
he's like, yeah, yeah. And then I went into the office and I said, hey, we need to get a longer rope. And I told him, I said, we're going to get you a longer rope, just hold on. And we've got some extra in here, and I'll fix it right now. So you can, and we'll measure it right. We'll be perfect for you. And that
yeah,
was before ADA, but it was one of those things where it's like, if you don't have that issue, you don't even realize how difficult it might be for someone even to shut. He was telling me he had to go ask the manager usually to get it. If he
yeah,
couldn't jump up and get it, he had to go ask the manager. That's kind
right.
of bad, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
and
truly, it is doing good things for people, just making our product usable for everyone.
right. Yeah, and that's really what it's all about, is just being accommodating and treating people with dignity and respect, just like whether they have a disability or not. And
Right.
that's a perfect example. And then you can see that this kit comes with that lower rope to get it
Yes.
down within what's called the reach range requirements of the ADA. And so having that is a huge, it seems small, but it's going to keep you out of a $15,000 settlement,
Yeah.
by some of the
But
opportunities.
some of these old doors, like these old Porvine doors right here, they're so heavy to lift. We've
Yeah.
had problems with that too, with people, and I have put on some of those. I put new doors on because we there was no way we could comply with those old doors.
Yeah, that's the trick. Is the ADA also has a requirement for the operating pressure to be no more than
Yes.
5 pounds, which is
Right.
super light. But Janus also sells, and there's other manufacturers that sell an
Oh
ADA
my.
operator,
Yes.
automatic door.
Yep.
So you
Hmm.
push a button, or you put your key card or something in, and then it'll activate and roll the door up. So those are good options. And if you're only doing them on 5%, or
Right.
8 units out of the 200 or something, or 150 or whatever, then it's not like you have to do all 200 or 300 units. You only need
Right.
to, you
Yeah.
know, just a few. So it's good customer service, shows you care, keeps you out of hot water, and opens you up to $490 billion market of people with disabilities.
I
So
think someone's living out of that space.
yeah, this was in California, so I won't say
Yeah.
where.
Well,
But
no, I can already tell. They brought their push cart of whatever it is, and they're probably sitting in there relaxing.
yeah, I think so. So, uh, anyway, okay. So simple tip number 4, we've covered 3. This is our last one. Provide accessible restrooms. Now, before I get into some of the violations, and you already mentioned a couple in your experience, one of the things you can consider is my term equal equal. So if you don't provide restrooms for the public, then don't provide restrooms for the public, meaning whether you're able-bodied or disabled, equal equal. If you make it an employee-only restroom, but then don't say, oh, I know Bob, he's a good guy, he comes in here, I'll go ahead and use the restroom. Then grandma comes in a chair, hey, can I use that restroom? No.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, you know where they go if they don't have a restroom?
In the
Out on the
units?
property
Oh,
somewhere.
yeah.
I'll tell you,
So,
I just, this is the weirdest business, but the truth is they'll find somewhere to go if you don't have a bathroom, or if it's locked up and they can't get into it or whatever. And I had one client up at Sacramento, and she's like, I will not have a bathroom on the property. We don't want to clean it, and we don't want this and that. And so she ended up having to put a porta potty out there because she had so many problems with people going to the bathroom on the property. And then she had to put an ADA
yeah, porta potty.
porta potty. So she
Yep.
really got herself into some trouble with that.
Yeah, so clearly, if you can make your uh, existing restrooms in the office or right off the office, if it's one of those, compliant, that's the best way. And I love catch 22 solutions, where it works and nobody can file a lawsuit, and it reduces your exposure by almost 15%. And just, tells people you care about, people with disabilities, and solves the problem with people going on the property and sanitation.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
so it may be a little bit of expense, but I mean, if you calculate the expense of portables over a
Oh,
5-year
yes.
period, probably could
Yes.
have remodeled it, and,
Right.
and
Exactly. Yeah.
or the costs of cleaning all that mess and sanitizing and so forth, especially with
Yes.
COVID now and everything else. So,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
but try to put some of that money into the restrooms. And even if you
Mhm.
can't do everything all at once, phase it in. If you're an older facility, a pre-91 building, or actually a pre 2010 building, really, you can phase that in under what's called readily achievable barrier. You don't have to tear down the whole building and rebuild it.
Right.
Just do what you can each year. Put a little bit of your maintenance budget aside for ADA upgrades. Make a line item on your accounting.
Yeah.
Put a percentage of your maintenance budget in that, and it's tax deductible up to $15,000 a year that can go towards ADA upgrades. And so
Yes.
it's a real
I
easy
do,
way to.
Paul, I do some due diligence work for people that are buying new properties, and I include like an ADA section because
Yeah.
if it's non-compliant, I need them to know that, wait a minute, you're going to have to spend a lot of money on this to get this up to code. And so I don't know. I don't think everyone does that, but I do think it's important if you're buying a new property even, or people get new into the industry, you better think about ADA when you're looking at these older properties that you're buying, just to make sure they're compliant, or you're going to have to put some money into it. But you all do that too, right? You like because most people don't understand all of this.
Yeah, well, before you buy $1 million property investment or more,
Yeah.
I don't know what storage facilities are going for,
Oh,
but I'm sure it's
millions, yes.
yeah, millions. So, you probably want to spend, a couple $1,000s on a survey to know whether you're inheriting an ADA liability or are you good. And even if
Right.
you aren't good, at least you know what the issues are. And in a lot of cases, if you're the buyer, you can use that report to help negotiate price during your due diligence.
Absolutely.
So it's
Yes.
like, hey, your facility is a little older. We under our due diligence period, we saw these issues. It's going to be 50,000, approximately to fix it. We'd like to reduce the price by that amount, and if the seller's agreeable to it, or it's a
Hmm.
negotiating tool. On the flip side, if you're the seller, you can also get the report to show that you are in compliance, and that way you circumvent someone trying to use that to negotiate the price down.
Hmm.
But either way, you want to go into an investment knowing what it is. I mean, it's just like you buy a home,
Right.
350, $600,000 home, you're getting a home inspection usually. It's the
Yep.
same idea.
Yep.
So good stuff. Well,
Yep.
let's show you some examples in the bathrooms. Okay, here's a perfect example. It looks compliant if you're a novice, but if you're a seasoned expert like myself, the signs, those are wall signs. And people who do what's called wayfinding, who have a visual impairment, they have a cane detectable, and they go down the wall, and they're trained to look on the side of the door because they don't want to be on the door, because when someone opens the door, they're going to get whacked
Right.
in the face.
Yeah.
So simple fix. Unstick that sign, stick it on the wall over there where the arrows are going. I mean, you're talking less than $20 or zero if you're if you have a maintenance person or somebody that
Yeah.
can just do
And
it
you could put
themselves.
other ones down, couldn't you? Could you, in addition to those, leave those up and then put another
Yeah,
one that's compliant
you
down?
just leave in case you don't want to paint or something,
Right. That's what
and
I'm
have to
thinking.
stick them messed up. Yeah, just add new ones to the compliant location.
I don't know
And then
that they're worried about painting and color schemes with this thing anyway, right?
yeah, that avocado green and tile
Yeah,
is pretty.
and that gray and the pink and the mauve.
Yeah. Um, and then this one is
Oh,
soap dispenser. So soap
yeah.
dispenser, hand sanitizers with COVID,
Yep.
you've got wipies and everything out. Those all need to be within reach range, less than 48 inches.
Yep.
So I just tell everybody 40, but put everything at 40,
40.
and whether it's in the bathroom or outside the bathroom, and you're going to be in good shape. This one is what, an inch and a half over. Doesn't seem like a big thing. Is it going to
Oh,
prevent access? Probably not. Is it going to show up in one of those drive-by lawsuits? Absolutely.
yes.
And now it's another hundred or $1,000 item that they add on top of all the other ones to try to get a settlement.
And it'll
Uns-
keep a new property from opening up too. Because, if you don't have it right the first time before the inspection, then you're going to have another delay.
exactly,
Yep.
exactly.
Mhm.
Here's your favorite, Carol.
Oh,
the mirror, and we hear about this all the time. Business that's been open for the last 30 years shut down because mirror was half-inch too high. That's not always totally true. It's
Right.
usually a whole bunch of other things, and the business was probably already struggling, and then the ADA lawsuit just pushed them over the edge.
Yeah.
But you can circumvent that, and to your point earlier, you don't have to move this. You can just add another mirror that's down lower within
Right.
the. So you've got almost 3 inches on top of that lab there. You could put another mirror in down at 35, or just put that one down under 40, and you're good. But it's the famous one that always shows up in every lawsuit. That's so easy. And even I do hundreds of evaluations all over the U.S. and it never fails. I get there and it's 40 and a quarter or 40 and an eighth. And it's like,
Right.
man, you've got 15 inches at the bottom to 40. You got this huge range, and unfortunately, they're getting installed right at that
Yeah.
maximum, and then it's showing up in a lawsuit. This one's another one, pipe wrap. So sharp edges, pipe wrap. You can go down to Home Depot, a little bit of zip ties or black tape, and foam that up in about 10 minutes for about $20, and you're gonna reduce your exposure to a lawsuit. So that's something. Is it going to prevent access? No. But is it going to show up in a lawsuit? Yes. But and does it cost thousands of dollars to fix?
No.
Absolutely not. Now, granted, there are those other larger, your water closet's too close to the lab, the room's not big enough because it was built in the 70s. Maybe you need to tear the middle wall out between the men's and women's and just go to one big unisex restroom. So there's other ways to there are more expensive issues out there, but a lot of them are not.
Yeah. Well, most storage properties, I'm going to say most, have a unisex bathroom just because it's easier. Less bathrooms.
Yeah, it's a great way to go, and you can have two, unisex, especially in California now with the all gender requirements. Unisex is a great way to accommodate all. And usually in a storage facility, your fixture count, you're not going to need 35 toilets like at a concert hall or something.
Right.
So 1 or 2 unisex rooms is probably going to be more than enough. So just a kind of a quick recap here is the 4 simple tips is number 1, get your parking lot right. That's 50% right there. If you don't do anything else, at least do that. Make sure your route of travel from the public right of way or from the stalls, parking stall into the storage facility is there. Now you're at almost 75%, another 25%. Sure, you have self-storage units or a policy in place. That'll reduce it by another 10 to 11%. And then provide accessible restrooms, and that gets you almost to 95% reduction in lawsuits or exposure to lawsuits. And if you do these things, they'll go after your competitors. So,
Right.
so it's a good way to look at it. And so a couple things you can do. Excuse me, and I'll show you the tax stuff too. Is what a lot of people ask what to do next. Well, number 1 is evaluate your business, whether you do it yourself. There's checklists out there from the feds. They don't always have the state and the federal, especially in California.
Right.
Or you can hire a professional like myself or another firm to come out to do that. And then plan a budget for corrections. Again, older facilities pre-2010, you can phase that in over time on a year-to-year basis. Maybe the first year you take care of the parking lot. The next year you do the path. Maybe the third year the counter has to be lowered inside the lobby. And then you get to the bathrooms. But you really want to start outside and work your way in, because that parking lot's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck. And that's what I'm talking about, setting priorities, and then annually adjust and review around tax time. And the reason why is because you can get tax credits and deductions. So up to $15,000 per year. Check with your accountant. I'm not an accountant, but you might know better than I do, because that's more your area, Carol. But you can cover a lot of upgrades every year.
Right.
You're probably doing some of those anyway in your maintenance program. So why not put some of that towards ADA?
Some of our old style offices had the countertops really high.
Yeah.
And most of the ones we're doing now are either lower, or they've got one high counter and then a lower area where people can come up with a wheelchair and accessible. But boy, if you go out and look at a lot of storage properties, I mean, there are problems everywhere you touch today. And I think you don't know anything better until someone sues you, and then you're like, okay, we've got to fix this because this going through this hassle is not worth it. But I do think because you're so trained, it's easy for you to find these. I think we get a little blinded when you're not handicapped to these things, and to have you come in would be amazing, be able to do that.
Yeah, and you're busy running your business. You don't have time
Yeah.
to learn all the nuances of the ADA and all that stuff. It's just like any other specialist, or in your case, if you're trying to, if I'm a facility owner and I think there may be fraud going on, I don't know. I'm running my business. I don't have time to,
Yeah.
I'm going to hire Carol,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's the same kind of idea,
Well,
but
and I could find it much quicker than they could.
yeah, and half the
Exactly.
cost, and,
Yes.
and you can certainly go online and watch YouTube videos and, maybe get a tenth of what I can do or you can do, and, just off the top of your head.
Well,
And
and
so,
another weird thing about this that I found is that especially early on in California, we would hire contractors to come fix it, and then we still wouldn't pass. And I'm like, wait a minute, you don't know. I thought you were the ones that are going to tell us where this needed to be, or we just knew it wasn't in compliant at first. We didn't know, exactly what was wrong and what it needed to be, you know, so I don't know. It was just so frustrating early on, but it's to have someone like you to be able to say, this is what it needs and this is, what we can do. Do you all recommend other people to fix those things too, or do you?
yeah, we pretty much, both my other business partner and another company I'm involved in, we both made a conscious decision to not do mitigation work. We
Right.
will recommend. We have a list of vendors we worked with. We don't get a cut. We don't. We
Right.
want to stay total third party arbitrary. I've always had an issue with termite inspections because they get to
Yes.
write up all that's wrong on your house, and then they get to do all the work. So
Yeah.
there's that financial, and I never wanted to have that cloud where,
No,
oh,
that's
I'm writing all this stuff up on your facility so I can get all this work as a contractor.
yeah. But
And there,
having someone that knows that is so important, that who to go to fix it.
yeah. So what we do is we work with our clients in that we'll do the report, which I'll show you here in just a second, and then and then we'll say, hey, yeah, here's some good contractors in your area that you can
Mhm.
consider. Get
Yeah.
3 bids. Do your due diligence and so forth, but we don't do the mitigation or design work, but we'll answer questions all day. And once you're a client, you're always a client. So I have clients that have done work 5-6 years ago, and they'll call me because they're just now getting to some of the more complex issues. And hey, Paul, on page 45 of your report, there was this thing. What are my options there? And I'll say, well, you can do this, this, or this, and then they'll
Yeah.
pick one and they'll be on their way. So yeah, what we do, Carol, is we do these reports here. And so this is a typical report for a storage facility, and it's a PDF that we generate that has it's real simple to use. A lot of the other consultants will do like a spreadsheet, and then you got to look on different pages for pictures. Our reports are very simple and concise. One page shows you exactly what's wrong. You can see the picture here. The parking stall is not deep enough. This is California. It's got to be
Right.
18 feet. And then we have the diagram on the right, what it should look like, and then the
Oh,
code
that's
section and exactly what's wrong. So you could literally give it to a contractor to fix, or even your maintenance guy or gal might even be able to
Mhm.
implement some of the issues. Some of it's signage, like this one has the sign. So you don't need to hire a contractor. You have your maintenance staff,
Right.
do some of these things, and they can take the report and go right in. And then we have a checklist, a custom checklist available that's basically does it's the same checklist we use. So we can either audit for you. That's your first class, higher end. Those starts around $1,800 per facility. Or you can download the app with your facility staff and we'll audit with you remotely. So your facility staff will be on site going through everything with the checklist on a mobile app, and then we'll be on remotely helping them through the process, answering questions. Or you can do it yourself, which is down on the lower end, about $350 a site per year. And so it's real when you compare those costs: $1,800, $850 for the one where we do it remotely, or $350 if you do it yourself. It is a bargain compared to a $10,000 or $15,000 lawsuit, and you'll know exactly what you're dealing with. And
Yes.
it's a great app. It's like a checklist: choose your own adventure. Do you have a parking stall?
Yeah.
Yes, no. And it really walks you right through, and it captures all the state and local federal requirements all in one. So enough of my
Hmm.
pitch there, and this is my contact information for questions, regardless if it's about ADA in general or you're stuck on something. Feel free to reach out to me, and even if if you don't become a client, just shoot me an email if you have a question. I'll get you an answer. And I do have a free gift for your folks,
Oh,
Carol.
yay.
I have a free PDF specific for storage owners. They can scan that with their phone, or I can send you the link to put in the show notes
Yeah.
on the video if you'd like.
I'm going to scan it right now. Okay.
There you go.
See if it works. Oh, I am so bad at this. My kids are like, oh, mom, give me your phone.
You just
I
tap
got
it,
it.
and then you click on the. Did it open up?
Yeah.
There you go. Perfect.
Yay.
Yeah. So yeah, just fill out that form, and then you'll get an automated email from me, and it'll give you the download. And
Good.
it covers a lot of the stuff we talked about today, but it's specific for storage owners, and that's pretty much it. And I know
And
we
Paul,
want people to.
where can we see you? Are you going to be speaking anywhere soon, or with
Yes,
storage people? Huh.
in Vegas. I think we're gonna hopefully get together while we're there. I hope to see you.
Yes.
I'm speaking. My session is on the 9th at I think 8 or 8:30 in the morning,
Okay.
September 9th, and it'll be very similar to this, but we'll have Q&A, and it'll be all about ADA and specific for storage facilities
Yeah,
at
you'll
the.
have all the nerds there at 9 o'clock in the morning in Vegas, because otherwise they'll be out gambling and drinking.
Yeah.
But that's okay too. I can't spend money in a slot machine anymore. It
You
just
need.
kills me.
It's just waste the money.
Yeah,
And
kind of. Well, thank you so much. This was so informative, and it's something that we miss sometimes in self-storage. If you're, especially even the managers don't even notice certain things about their property, and they could say, hey, to their owners, we need to really look at this. This might be something that we need to do, because if you wait until you get a lawsuit, it's so much more difficult. And the time pressure and the time crunch you're in to, to get back with the court and to deal with this, it is just monumental. And
yeah,
and I think there are people out there that are doing horrible things to businesses just to try to, make an easy buck. And
yeah,
I hate for us
yeah,
to be in that place, but thank you
exactly.
so much again. And I think, and please like and subscribe to us at Skill Check, our webinars, because we want to bring you things like Paul has today. And it's just so much great information. So thank you again so much.
Thanks
Well,
for having
happy
me.
renting.
Carol.
Uh,
Bye.